Добрий ранок.
Good
Доброго
morning.
ранку. Ще додаємо учасників.
We're still adding
Я
participants in.
попрошу вас
In the
ті, хто вже
meantime, I
доєднався,
would
будь
like to
ласка,
ask those who have
панелі
already
внизу
joined, at the bottom of your
є
Zoom panel,
позначка, якщо
you can
українською у вас
find
суто, то інше, або
more icon
більше у вас там 3 крапочки, ви
with
натискаєте,
3
і там у
dots.
вас
If you
буде
click it,
доступ до
you
мови,
will
якою
be
ви
able
хочете
to
слухати
access the
захід.
language that
Або
you would prefer
англійською,
listening to today's event
або
in,
українською в
which is
перекладі.
either
У нас є
Ukrainian or
до речі,
English,
і
as we have
пані
interpreters
Яна.
working with
Вона
us
буде
today,
синхронно перекладати.
and
Тому
our
потрібно
interpreters will be
вибрати мову,
providing simultaneous
оскільки
interpretation today.
3
That is why
спікери
you
наших
need to
сьогодні
choose
будуть
language,
говорити
because 3 of
англійською.
our speakers today will be presenting in
Тому я
English.
попрошу вас поки це
That's why I would
зробити,
like to ask
поки
you
ми
to
додаємо
please
і
do that
чекаємо
while we're still
всіх
adding
ще.
people and
Да, і
waiting
от
for
в
the rest
чатику
to join.
скинули так
And by the way,
само.
there is also an instruction
Пані Яна
available in the
скинула
chat box sent by
також
Yana,
інструкцію, яким чином ви можете
which
перейти
tells you
на
how
переклад для того,
you
щоб
can
слухати
enable
мову, яка
interpretation
вам
to listen to the language
більш
that you
зрозуміла.
prefer. Be recorded in both languages.
Запис відео можна буде
And later on,
подивитися,
you
ну,
will
будемо
be
надсилати
able
всі матеріали, всі
to look at one
презентації,
more time
і
because we're going to share all of the
запис
materials of the
презентації
presentations
в
with you and the
матеріалах, і
recording
також
of
на
today's
нашому
session.
ютубі Clean
And
Air
you also
for
will be able
Ukraine.
to find it on our
Можете
YouTube, Clean
знайти.
Air for Ukraine.
Що ж, ми будемо починати. Ті, хто
Well,
будуть
let us get
доєднуватися, будемо
started.
додавати.
Those who
Знову ж
are
таки,
joining
є
us, we will be adding them
інструкція, як
as they
перейти на
come.
мову.
Again, there
Пані
is
Яна,
an
наша
instruction
перекладачка,
on
написала.
how to enable
Тож, рада
interpretation. Our
вітати
interpreter,
всіх
Yana,
на
has shared it with us.
презентації
So
першого
welcome
дослідження
to the presentation of the
збагнення
first
відкладу
research of the
Каховського
contamination of the
водосховища.
sediments from Kakhovka reservoir.
Дана опублікована презентація, я
This
покину посилання в чат.
presentation, I'm going to share the link in
Є
the
на
chat
нашому
box, is
сайті.
already available on
Наразі
our
дослідження, воно
website.
є одним з
And
результатів
currently, this research is
багаторічної
one of the
співпраці
outcomes
між
of the
чеською громадською організацією
many
Арніка
years of
та її українськими
collaboration between
партнерами.
Arnica and its Ukrainian partners, Free Arduino from
Дніпро в
Ivano-Frankivsk,
рамках проєкту
Inward
«Чисте
to
повітря
Dnipro,
для
in the
України».
framework of Clean
У
Air for
дослідженні
Ukraine.
відкладень також брала
And
участь
while
чеська
researching
компанія
sediments, also
«Деконта»,
the Czech
і
company
дослідження
deconta
фінансувалося
participated, and it was
програмою
funded
сприяння переходу
by
Міністерства
the
закордонних справ Чеської
Minister
Республіки
of Foreign
та
Affairs
урядом
of Czech
Швеції.
Republic
І
and
відкриватиме
Swedish
презентацію і віддальне
government.
слово
And I
буде
would like to
Jakub
give the floor to
Lewandowski,
Jakub Lewandowski
представник
for
Посольства
the
Чехії,
opening and welcome
Міністерства
the
екології та
representative of
природних
Embassy of the
ресурсів
Czech
України.
Republic,
Тож,
Minister of
пане
Environmental
Якубе,
Protection and
вам
Natural
слово.
Resources. Over to you, Jakub.
Thank you. Good morning or late morning
ladies and gentlemen, dear partners and colleagues. It's really great pleasure to me, for me to be here today with you and be one of the opening speakers. In a few minutes, the colleagues from organization Arnica will present you the results of their research on the impacts of destruction of Kakhovka reservoir, which happened last year. Everybody knows that it was one of the biggest ecological disasters in Europe after the Chernobyl, and its impacts will last for many, many years. And without any doubts, we can classify it as a war crime. Support of environmental projects in Ukraine is one of the priorities of the Czech Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And these kind of projects are much more important these days as never before, because the ongoing war is incredibly destroying the Ukrainian nature and environment on the scale which we could hardly imagine in the previous years. And I'm really proud as a representative of the Czech Republic that we have such organizations as Arnica in the Czech Republic. We have successful cooperation with Arnica for many years, especially in the field of clean air. And we consider the new research on Kakhovka sediments as another very important issue. After Kakhovka, then destruction, Czechia sent immediately humanitarian help to Ukraine to tackle the disaster. However, the consequences of this disaster will last for many years. Thanks to Arnica's research, we got important information about impact on Ukraine unoccupied territories. But we don't have proper information about the situation about the area under Russian control, which was also heavily affected. We all know that Russia is trying to destroy Ukraine and that is fighting for its survival and independence. Therefore, we cannot stop our support to Ukraine, especially, the supplies of weapons or humanitarian assistance. At the same moment, we cannot forget about deepening environmental problems of Ukraine. Needs are extremely huge, and despite involvement of many actors, many problems will be not. However, Czechia has good experience in monitoring the air, decontamination, and also other issues. Therefore, we are sure that the Czech know-how can be effectively used in Ukraine in many respects. In the end, I would like to thank the organizers for the event, and I would like to wish to participants having nice and inspirational time during the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jakub. And now I would like to give the floor to Marcela Chernohova, coordinator of Clean Air for Ukraine and representative of the Czech NGO Arnica. She will tell us about ecological burden and specifically will focus on the Czech experience.
Thank you all. Now I will try to share the screen. Can you see the screen, please?
Так, бачимо.
Okay, super.
Yes, we do.
So, hello everyone again, and greetings from Prague. And I will spoke about historical environmental burdens, and I will try to share experience with this issue from the Czech Republic. As it has been mentioned already, I represent Arnica, non-governmental organization from the Czech Republic, but also our long-term program, Clean Air for Ukraine, which is run in Ukraine since 2017 in cooperation with our Ukrainian partners, EcoCity, Free Zelený Svět from Dnipro, and Environmental Monitoring Center in Dnipro. Since very beginning, we focused on air quality, especially in the industrial regions. And when the war started, we had another focus, another aim or field, which is like post-war recovery and environmental damages caused by war. You can find more information on our website, cleanair.org. If I say a little bit about our work in Ukraine in the area of war damages and environmental threats, I would like to mention one study which, together with our colleagues, we prepared. It's called Environmental Consequences of the Russian War, which was published last year. Again, you can see it on our website. Now, of course, we are very proud of our Kakhovka study with the analysis of sediments. You will hear more information from my colleague Nikola Jelinek. And recently, we started two new projects. One is about inventory of environmental burdens in the Dnipropetrovsk region, which is just started 2-3 weeks ago. And the second one started at the beginning of this year, focusing on green reconstruction in the war-affected regions, which includes also the inventory and mapping of environmental threats in the communities in Hromadas. Okay, it stopped sharing. I'm sorry. Okay. So now it starts running again. So as I said, I would like to share the Czech experience with the topic of environmental burdens or environmental threats. And I would say that Czech Republic has a long experience in evidence of the contaminated sites, but also with remediation. And when we're talking about contaminated sites, these are primarily either military areas after Soviet army, but also some economic, some contaminations which were actually related to the economic activities during communist regime. Because as you also know, the communist regime was not really following the environmental rules and principles. So what we did after the communist regime finished in 1989, we created a database of sites with old environmental burdens. It's important to say what's the definition of old, or if you like, historical environmental burden. These are contaminations which either arose before the privatization in the 90s, or that actually the source of the contamination, it's not known, or does not exist anymore. And why did we decide in the Czech Republic that we will do the database of the sites and that we will do the mapping? It's not only because some people from NGO or activists would like it, but there were very pragmatic and very strict reasons for it. First of all, when the privatization started, there were many investment projects. And of course, if you are an investor, you want to have some ideas what's in the area or what's in the factory which you are purchasing, and you need some guarantee. So at that time, the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia at that time actually guaranteed that if you are an investor and you are purchase a site which is in the evidence of the contaminated site, that they will cover the remediation of such site. So that was very big investment incentive for many projects and for many development projects. And then, of course, because we were accessing the European Union, it was one of the requirements of European Union. So if you are part of European Union, there are some directives which you need to fulfill, and part of these directives are that you have to make the evidence of the contaminated sites. Just very quickly, what we did, I will not go into the details about the methodology, but I want to show you that it is a long-term task if you want to make the mapping or make the inventory and create the database. In the Czech Republic, and we are quite small country, it was in two phases. First phase was the development of the methodology and testing it. And the methodology was based on, is still based on public administration records, remote sensing methods, old historical orthophoto maps, or more advanced technology like satellite data, and then also questioning like local and regional institutions. So we put all of this together, and then the second phase started, which was the evaluation of altogether 30,000 sites. Again, I am saying these numbers so that you can imagine comparing quite small Czech Republic to a large area of Ukraine. So we had to evaluate and verify 30,000 sites. From that, using these filters and so on, we excluded more than 20,000 sites, and around 10,000 sites were put in the category which was considered contaminated or potentially contaminated. And then there were teams of researchers which went to the field and make the investigation. But the point is that we already eliminated 2/3 of the sites, so it saved quite lots of work for the team for the research in the field. So at the end, we had 446 sites which were put in the category that they will require the remediation, or it's like strongly recommended that the remediation will take place. And then, of course, the next question, which I would imagine comes across your mind, is okay, so who paid for it? So the main funding for remediation of the environmental burdens was from operational program called Environment, which is basically the most important subsidy program for environment protection in the Czech Republic. And most of the money comes to this program from European Union. And again, just that you imagine some numbers in like it's like these 5 years periods of financing. In the first period, it was 234 million euros, then 159 million euros, and then you see a similar number at this time. Now I would like to, why I said the numbers, it's again so that you can compare the situation in the Czech Republic, and we can now like just imagine how much money will be required for remediation of sites in Ukraine, because you have not only environmental like economic burdens from the economic activities, but there will be large war damages, of course, as well. So now I would like to touch a little bit the military areas, because there were similar problems which Ukraine is facing now and will be facing in the time when the recovery and remediation will take place. So in the Czech Republic, Soviet Army occupied 73 military areas. The last Soviet soldier left in 1991. And from the 73 military areas, 60 areas had significant environmental damages. And at those areas, there were 150 sites which received a passport like contaminated site requiring remediation. Mostly it was soil and groundwater contamination and well, petroleum hydrocarbons, chlorinated hydrocarbons, polychlorinated biphenyls and heavy metals were the most significant pollutants. And how we cope with it, how we dealt with it. At the beginning, we had like temporary institution, which was called Office for Solving the Consequences of the Stay of Soviet Troops. But as I said, it was only temporary. And then the task was, or the responsibility was transferred partly to the Ministry of Environment and partly to the Ministry of Defense. So the remediation just of the military sites in the first phase, which was until 2012, cost more than 60 million euros. However, it is important to say that that was only the first phase, and in some areas the remediation still continues. So if you can imagine, we're talking 1991 when the last soldier left, and now we are 2024 and we are still remediating the consequences of the presence of Soviet troops. So that's again something which put us into perspective what is going on in Ukraine and what we, like the whole society, will have to cope with it. And I really think that that's the reason why we work now in Ukraine, because I strongly believe that, and Jakub Lewandowski from the embassy mentioned it as well, that we have the experience. Thanks to that, we created quite a good know-how with many experts and many companies and institutions which know how to cope with the contamination and with the remediation. But I also think that because we had the experience of the communist regime and entering European Union, we went through this process already, so that we can share also this experience in the perspective of environment and nature conservation. So this is the reason why we want to transfer it. And why I think that even when we are still talking about like there is war going on, and of course we are all aware that first we need to win, and then we can really focus on these recovery work and so on. But I think it is important that during the preparation of recovery and during the recovery process, we will not forget about the historical contamination, that we will not focus only on the war damages, but we need to talk also about the historical environmental burdens. Because first of all, also these sites are threats and risk to human health and life. It's also important for the potential investors and potential development projects. And of course, I think all of us who are here, we believe and we want that Ukraine is very soon part of the European Union, and therefore the Ukrainian institutions and nature conservation authorities will have to deal also with the evidence of the contaminated sites, like we had to do it in the Czech Republic. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the attention, and razom do перемоги.
Дякую,
Дякую, Марсела.
Thank you, Marcela. And I would like to mention that you can ask your questions in chat, and after the presentations, you will be able to ask the questions live to our speakers. And now I give the floor to Nicola Yelinets, who represents the NGO Anika from Czech Republic. She will tell you about the first research of contamination of sediments of the Kakhovka reservoir and the results of their work. So the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and see my presentation?
Yes, all good.
Okay.
Так.
I would like to introduce you the results of the research of the contamination of sediments of Kakhovka reservoir. On this report, I worked together with my colleagues, which you can see on the screen, and yes, that's me. I'm one of the main authors of the report, and here you can see me in Georgia taking dust sample because that's what I do next to writing reports. So I am part of the Arnica Toxics and Waste program, and I was helping with the report and hopefully with another sampling in Ukraine. This report is mainly focused on Kakhovka reservoir, which is, I believe it's the second largest reservoir, or was the second largest reservoir in Europe. And it was destroyed in the last year on the 6th June, which resulted in flooding and emptying of the original lake bed, which means almost 2,000 square kilometers of original lake bed dried. This is how the Kakhovka reservoir looked before the destruction, and this is how it looks after the destruction. Sampling which we did was performed in 2 stages together with the Conta and Environmental Inspectorate of the Southern District in Zaporizhia. And in the first stage, we took 4 samples of sediment from reservoir, 1 sediment from Dnipro River, and 2 soil samples. And in the second stage, we took 6 samples of sediment and 1 soil sample. The aim of the study was to indicate the level of contamination of the exposed river bottom. In those 2 maps, you can see the locations from the first and the second stage of sampling. On the left side, it's the first one, and on the second, on the right side, it's the second stage of sampling. On the first stage of sampling, there isn't one sample from Kherson. This is pictures from some of the locations we took samples from. This one is really interesting because, as you will see in the results later, it's Zaporizhia Central City Beach. This one was also interesting. It's Suchá Moskovka. This is picture from sailing school nearby Malokaterynivka village. This is a photo from the place of the impact of the missile from Russia. And this is more on how we proceeded by sampling. All samples we collected were collected by stainless steel shovel from below the surface. They were mixed, so we got mixed samples, not only 1 point samples. They were homogenized, they were marked and transported in plastic low-density polyethylene bags while stored in cool environment. What we analyzed in them, it was heavy metals, it was polyaromatic hydrocarbons, non-polar extractable compounds, and some organics, which was hexabromocyclododecane isomers, polybrominated diphenyl ethers, novel brominated flame retardants, dechlorane plus, polychlorinated biphenyls, hexachlorobutadiene, polychlorinated naphthalines, penta and hexachlorobenzenes, and short-chained and medium-chain chlorinated paraffins. In some of the samples, we also analyzed PFAS and dioxin-like activity. I will talk about the specific compounds later. This is one of the photo from sampling. You can see the stainless steel shovel. You can see the LDPE Ziploc bag, and etc. When we get the results, we compare them to indicative levels of decontamination in Czech Republic, which are being used to decide whether, as Marcela told before, whether the place needs to be decontaminated or not, because there are no such levels being used in Ukraine, and those in Czechia are derived from the US EPA. We also compared the results to samples which were collected in the estuary of Dnipro and Boch. We also compared them to the upper stream of Dnipro and its tributaries, which means Mogilev, Žlobin, Gatovo, and Berezinský and Druzhny. Those two last are in italic because they were used as reference sites, which means that they were supposed to be clean. And there were some missing data which were not measured in previous studies, so we used comparable data from literature. Let's go to results. This is one of the big tables which you can also find in the report. In the first column, you can see the name of the chemical. In the second one, if there is a level for decontamination, then you can find it in the second column. In the next to it is the unit. All those red table fields, and in the first row, you can see the names of the samples. All those red table fields means that there is need for decontamination in this case or in this site, and the orange ones mean that they were higher or elevated, or they are interesting, but they have no level for decontamination set. So you can see that the one who crossed the levels for decontamination most was the sample L1, followed by many others, but and the chemicals that were most interesting in case of Kakhovka reservoir were hydrocarbons on sites L1 and L2, polyaromatic hydrocarbons for almost all the samples of sediment. In case of L1, it was DDD, one of the products of DDT decomposition, and in one case of the second stage sampling in sample SEDU3, it was also polychlorinated biphenyls. There was also elevated levels of short-chain chlorinated paraffins and medium-chain chlorinated paraffins in some samples, especially in the second stage of sampling, it's in SEDU4. So from this overview, you can see that there is definitely need for decontamination of almost all sites for polyaromatic hydrocarbons and DDD plus polychlorinated biphenyls. Why polyaromatic hydrocarbons are of interest? Because they have carcinogenic, mutagenic, and teratogenic effects, and they are toxic to humans, and in mammals they can be linked to direct genetic damage and cancer. They are bad because they are persistent in the environment. They have ability to bioaccumulate, especially in fats, which means that if there is fish which feeds on the bottom of the Kakhovka reservoir, for example, in one of the rivers that are there right now, they accumulate those compounds in them, and when someone eats this fish which has accumulated polyaromatic hydrocarbons, it can affect the human health this way. DDD is also of concern because it poses a significant health risk. It has negative effect on livers, on reproductive system, on immunity, and also works as endocrine disruptor. We also looked in the first stage of samples, we looked for dioxin-like activity because dioxins are one of the most toxic compounds which are linked to cancer, cardiovascular diseases, also endocrine disruption, and they are toxic to immune system. And we found elevated levels on in some of the samples from the first stage of sampling. In samples L1 and L2. Heavy metals. On the left side, you can also see the name of the heavy metal and the level for decontamination with units, and the red table field means that there is also need for decontamination, and you can see that it was problematic for arsenic and chromium in almost all cases. In one case for manganese, and there was high concentration in one case for lead, and almost the level for decontamination was in case of the sample L1. Why is arsenic important? Because it is strongly linked to lung and bladder cancer, and it's classified as human carcinogen. But it has also non-carcinogenic risks, which means that in this case it can affect development of the fetus or neurodevelopment of children, and also cardiovascular system. That was for comparison with levels of decontamination. We also compared the results with estuary of Dnipro and Boch, and we found out that for mercury, DDT, and PCBs, the concentrations found in Kakhovka was higher than then in this estuary, there was exception for chromium. We also compared it to upper stream of Dnieper River in Belarus, and we found out that there was higher concentration found for almost all the substances or compounds, but not for polybrominated diphenyl ethers and PFAS. We also made comparison with other sediments, and we found out that the DDT level was similar to highest levels observed in Ukraine, Czechia, and Poland. That the maximum polyaromatic hydrocarbons was similar as in Tatum in Thailand. We found out that the concentration of mercury was 17 times lower than in Kazakhstan, but up to 20 times higher than in Western Balkan or in Thailand. We found lower arsenic content in comparison with Serbia, Thailand, or Czechia. And for lead, we found out that in Kakhovka samples, it was higher than the maximum levels in Thailand, France, or Balkan, with exception to Serbia. We also compared results to mining sites in Armenia and with POPs contaminated sites in Czechia and Thailand. This is picture from one of the reference sites, which, as I said before, is supposed to be cleaner, and this is comparison for some chemicals, not all of them, from Zaporizhia, Kherson, and on the right side of the table with reference site Berezinsky and Druzhny. Those red fields show the highest concentration in the row for the specific chemicals, and you can see that in almost all the cases the concentration found was highest in Zaporizhia. There is a not PFAS because there was different limits of quantifications, so it cannot be. We didn't know how to compare it. So I am at the conclusions now. I was quicker than I thought. There was alarmingly high DDT concentrations found, which is very bad in this case because it's publicly available area. Those concentrations indicate the proximity of a site which is heavily contaminated with these pesticides. In this case, if it's not yet documented as an obsolete pesticide stockpile, then the hotspots should be identified. Within the second sampling, there was significant polychlorinated biphenyls concentration revealed, which may be due to historical contamination or contamination from industrial sources. And basically the high concentrations of other substances in sediments suggest that the source could be heavy industry, either metallurgical or engineering. For arsenic, it's probably coal. Public areas show significant need for decontamination, not only for polyaromatic hydrocarbons, but also for DDT, for nonpolar extractable compounds and PCBs, and heavy metals in some cases, for example, in sample L2, but not only arsenic, cadmium, chromium, and manganese, but for example, in sample L2, also the dioxin-like activity is also alarming. There's the question, what is next? There is definitely need extension and continuation and brighter monitoring together with remediation essential, and we will see what the future will bring and how long will it take. This is QR code to download the study, and I would like to thank you all for your attention.
Так, дякуємо.
Thank you.
Дякуємо, пані Нікола.
Thank you,
Я
Nicola.
нагадаю, що я бачила
I would like to
питання, що
remind you
були,
that I
але
already see
пропоную все ж
questions
таки,
from
щоб всі вже
Volodymyr,
виступили наші
but
спікери, і
I
потім
would
будемо ставити
suggest
питання.
that
Спікери з нами
all of the
залишаються,
speakers do
тож не
their
хвилюйтеся, ми
presentations
всі
and
приймемо
then we
участь.
can proceed to the
І
questions. So
дякую,
no
пані Нікола.
worries, we are
Я
gonna look
надаю
at all your
слово
questions
Олегу
now.
Богдану,
I'd like to give the floor to Oleg
Державної
Bogdan,
екологічної інспекції Kakhovka
the head of the State
округу. Тож, пане
Environmental
Олеже,
Inspection of the Southern
слухаю вас.
District. Oleg, over to you.
Доброго дня, шановні.
Greetings,
Державна екологічна
ladies
інспекція
and
Південного
gentlemen. I represent the State Environmental Inspection of the Southern District. It is not the first time when we are successfully collaborating with the experts of Arnica from Czech Republic. Our partnership has a long-lasting history, and we highly value professionalism and expertise of our colleagues from Czechia. The destruction of the Kakhovka reservoir and the dam became serious threats for the environmental safety and security. And our joint goal is to assess the damage done and in the future to understand which steps need to be taken to mitigate its impact on the environment. We hope that this collaboration will serve as an example for other international initiatives aimed at environment protection and remediation of the damaged areas. Together, we can achieve more, and our meeting proves that. The results that we are presenting today were the samples that were processed in our lab. And now I'd like to give the floor to Ludmila Godes, who is the representative of the lab that was analyzing the samples. Thank you.
Дякую, пане Богдан.
Thank you. Thank you, Oleg.
Детальніше про результати.
So yes, now we're going to hear in more detail about the results of the sediments that were carried out by the environmental inspection of Zaporizhzhia. Now we're going to give the floor to Ludmila Godes. The floor is yours. Hello, I hope you can hear me. Yes, yes. Ludmila, yes. Just one quick comment. In case you go up in the chat, there is an instruction on how to enable interpretation. You have to click 3 dots more, and then you can click interpretation, which will allow you to enable Ukrainian or English, and you can listen to the respective language. Or original, because the current speaker will be presenting in Ukrainian. This sound is there, everything should work. A quick technical... Yeah, people say that you can simply turn original audio and then you'll be able to hear everything in Ukrainian. Over to you, Ludmila. I hope you can hear me. Okay, good. Once again, hello, colleagues. Following the destruction of the Kakhovka reservoir, the result of the armed aggression of the Russian Federation in the territory of Zaporizhzhia Oblast, there was a large-scale main disaster, and the level of water in Dnipro River dropped significantly, and Kakhovka reservoir was almost entirely destroyed, which led to surfacing of the sediments across the huge territory. And the experts of the inspection, together with the representatives of Arnica from Czech Republic, in July and October 2024, have collected samples of the sediments along the banks of Dnipro River in Zaporizhzhia and around Kakhovka reservoir. The map of the sampling was presented in Nicola's presentation. In the lab, we have managed to see the huge number of sulfates and heavy metals such as cadmium, copper, nickel, chromium, and zinc. And the worst thing is that the most contaminated areas were the places that local people go for holidays to, such as city beaches, and the huge concentration of such compounds can lead to serious consequences for the human health, as all of that sediment is at the bottom of the reservoir. It is very hard for it to naturally decontaminate itself. It also impacts water, it impacts bioresources, the atmospheric air, animals, and of course for the food that are consumed by the human beings. Their collaboration didn't end in 2024. As a result of the Shalin and Dnipro power plant in March 2024, there was an oil leakage to the river Dnipro from the machine hall of Dnipro power plant. The experts have managed to see the concentration of oil that was 7 to 9 times higher than the norm. The overall size of contamination area is about 379 square meters. On March 28, 2024, experts of inspection, with the help of the Chief Inspectorate of the State Emergency Service in Zaporizhia Oblast, we have managed to liquidate the consequences of oil contamination. And we use the biosorbent to absorb the oil contamination and have processed over 5,000 square meters. The locations were selected in the cities and towns where water was contaminated with oil, which is 1.5, 2, and 4 kilometers away from the power plant. And in June 2024, together with Arnica, our inspection again did the sampling of the sediments in the same locations where the water has been contaminated earlier. And the residue there demonstrated that special emergency service managed to do everything in time, but at the same time, high concentration of heavy metals and sulfurs can nevertheless impact the ecosystem. Thank you for your attention, and we are looking forward for further fruitful cooperation with Arnica. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, we will be happy to respond to them. Yeah, thank you, Ludmila. Now let us move on to the questions. Those who are willing can raise their hands and they can voice their questions out loud. So, thank you. There's a question by Volodymyr Yakovenko. What was the principle to find the areas for sampling and how deep did you sample? And Nicola has already responded to one question. She said that the depth was 25 to 30 cm below the surface, and that other speakers can also help with other questions. So how were you detecting specific sampling areas? Maybe Marcela and Ludmila could help us with that question.
I think we can respond together with Ludmila because it was a joint decision. First criterion was the security, the safety, so that we will be able and allowed to get to the site. So that was one of the criterion. The other one was also accessibility, that we can drive reasonably close with the car and quite quickly take the samples. And then I think at least some of the sites were selected because they are in the public areas. So we wanted to know if these areas are dangerous for people who live there, mainly people in Zaporizhia. I don't know if Ludmila would like to add anything.
No, you have managed to fully respond to this question. Yes, the main thing was safety. The second one was the open areas, and the third one to be as rapid as possible, the velocity.
Так, дякую. Наступне питання
Thank you so much.
від
Now, the next
Георгія
question by Georgi Veremeychuk. Has Czech Republic managed to receive compensation for the damage done from the Soviet Union? Marcela, this is a question to you, I think, or maybe to Nicola.
I need to recall how it was in the historical. I'm not 100% aware, but I think it was not in the way that we would say you caused in this area such damage, and then you will compensate us. I think there was some kind of bilateral agreement, but honestly, I would say probably no, we did not receive the compensation. But I can check up on this. And if there will be still interest, I can send the response by email, or maybe we can write a short article on our website discussing or describing how this was done with the financial settlement. So.
Добре, тоді зафіксуємо собі це питання.
Okay, yes, we are going to take note. Next question is from Tatiana Lohina. Are you planning to further do the research, and are you planning to go down the stream too? I think that this is a question to Ludmila too and to Marcela. This is a question to me. Yes. What do you mean by lower down the stream? The samples that we collected in Kakhovka, this was the lowest point that we could reach. Kakhovka reservoir. Talking about the Dnipro River, there we collected samples from the sailing school. If I may, I would like to clarify my question. I'm talking about the Kakhovka reservoir itself, around Mariinsky, and further down the stream. There is a lot of area there that is pretty safe, and the armed hostilities are not ongoing there. So my question is whether you're planning to also do the sampling of sediments there. And now, around Mariinsky, there is a huge area that has surfaced. So this is part of Kakhovka reservoir. Yeah, I understand what you're talking about, but this is not Zaporizhia Oblast anymore. So this is not something that falls within your jurisdiction, right? Then can I ask our Czech colleagues, are they planning to go there? Because, yeah, I understand that this is not within, the jurisdiction does not matter for them.
Okay, I can maybe explain a little bit more. If I talk about the work which we plan now in the short term, we focus on inventory of the hotspots in Dnipropetrovsk region with more systematic, and we focus on those ones which are dangerous to people. We might consider to do more work on Kakhovka and Dnipro River, but honestly, the truth is that if we want to have more, more relevant results, then it's a huge amount of work for probably bigger organization than it's Arnica. But if we will have some specific suggestions, for example, from local community, from Hromada, from local authorities, we are ready. We have some funds for taking samples in areas which are considered by the local authorities as dangerous or as environmental threat. So yes, we can do it. I don't think that we will make huge research on Kakhovka, because as I mentioned, it's really big project, and again the safety it's one of the criteria which we have to take into account. But if you have any specific suggestion in the area which can be accessed, and the local authorities consider that this could be like potentially dangerous place, I would be very happy if you can get in touch and we can discuss if we are able to help and if we are able to take samples. Actually, in 2 days, I am leaving for Ukraine when we will be doing the samples. So if we will receive the information on time, maybe we can make a quick planning of our activities and take the samples.
Дякую за відповідь.
Можна ще одне запитання?
For your answer,
Так,
can I have one more
Скажіть,
question?
будь ласка,
Please tell us,
я бачила в вашому дослідженні, ви не
I've seen in
визначили
your research that you did not measure the radioactive elements. We know that in the Kakhovka reservoir there are cooling machines for the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and the Academy of Sciences conducted some research and they traced such elements. So the question is, do you plan to trace radionuclides in these samples because they move to the Black Sea and further?
Якщо питання до екологічної інспекції, то ні, не плануємо, бо ми працюємо в рамках уповноваження. Ми не уповноважені на визначення вмісту радіонуклідів. Можливо, чеські колеги.
Да, так. Можливо, чеські колеги.
Okay, I can briefly answer. When we visited first time the sites, we took the samples, and in the laboratories we didn't do the analysis for radiation, but we had like dosimeter with us. So when we were at the site, we made we made the measurements, and there was not increased radioactivity. But I agree with you, especially in the if we would be doing like further research. I think the minimum which should be done, take the dosimeter with you and take some measurement at the spot. But maybe in future, in some areas, it might be considered to take samples also for the radioactive substances or elements in the samples.
Thank you.
Дякую. Пані Тетяно.
Добрий день.
Пані Ларисо, а можна, можна я зачитаю, давайте чекати там ті, хто говорять, ті, хто пишуть, бо люди давно вже написали. Від пані Тетяни Жавжарової касається питання, чи брались проби вкладень нижче Запоріжжя, області, в районі Кошугуму.
The bed downstream in the Koshuvy region.
В районі Кошугуму не брали, збрали тільки...
No, in this region we didn't take samples because so we did not work in Koshugum region.
Пані Ларисо, тоді
So Larissa, the floor is yours.
Підкажіть, будь ласка,
Good
в мене
morning.
запитання до чешських
I have a question
Я
to the
побачила,
Czech
що в
colleagues.
дослідженнях, які
I
ви
saw
провели, в
in
результаті
your
досліджень дуже
report
багато знаходиться попсів.
a lot
А питання наступне. Ви кажете, що
information
ремедіація цих земель,
pop.
чи мали ви досвід
And you
ремедіації
speak
таких
about
земель?
the further
І яким чином
remediation.
відбувалося, оскільки
So I
ми
would like to
знаємо,
ask,
що всі
do you
ці
have
попси
experience of
досліджені
such
вони
remediation?
попадають під Стокгольмську угоду
Do you
Базельську
have
конвенцію.
experience working with POPs because they fall under the Stockholm Convention and which deals with the work with such elements? So do you have experience with that, and what recommendations do you have for us as the country who signed the Stockholm Convention? Thank you.
Regarding Stockholm Convention, I must say I'm not a big expert in this, but as for
we are talking about DDT, PCB, HCB, all these chemicals are the parts of the Stockholm Convention.
Yes, maybe Nicola can add some. I can say, like, if we have experience regarding decontamination or remediation, we have several companies which are working with it, which were doing the decontamination of the sites, And I think they can transfer the know-how. They are already actually one of the companies is already working in Ukraine in one site, which probably it's not allowed to say publicly which site it is. So we are already, like Czech Republic and Czech company is already using the know-how. And the idea of our project on the inventory of the contaminated sites in Dnipropetrovsk region, for example, is that this is the first step. The next step should be preparation of the more detailed, like decontamination project, and very hopefully the third step would be the cleaning up of these sites. So that's, I know I answer only partly. So
Thank you.
Наступне питання з нашого чату. Яка підготовка донних відкладів?
What is the sample preparation of sediments, methods of working with those sediments, determining metals? Arsenic is not a heavy metal, it's a metalloid. Did you take into account the clusters of metal contained in soils to assess pollution? It's a question from Vladislav Zhezhera.
I will probably try to answer.
Yes.
Yeah, I was talking about a sample taking in the presentation. We took it from the depth between 25 and 30 centimeters. We took a few point samples which were mixed together and homogenized, and then we put it into plastic bag and stored under cool environment. I hope that was everything on the sediment taking samples. Methodics for the
Визначення металів.
Determining the type of metal.
Yeah. For determining the types of metal is I don't remember them exactly, but they are in the study well described. Arsen is not arsenic is metalloid, but in the means of toxic in the means that they are toxic to human. They are commonly part of the heavy metals, even if they are not, like, by definition, heavy metal. Yes, and I don't understand the last part of the question.
Кладки. Мабуть, там малися на увазі, чи до уваги кладки вмісту металів для забруднення, мабуть,
the deposits like
середній вміст металу.
It deals with the average content of metal. So it deals with average content.
Like in the average content of our samples, still I don't know what you mean by this.
Добре, тоді ми переходимо до питання пана Максима Сороки.
It's the question from Maxim Soroka, so please.
Добрий день, шановні
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this research. It's more than interesting, and I have a comment and a question. First, comment deals with that after the detailed review of this report, I was surprised why the corresponding analysis wasn't conducted with the results of research of 2018, if we look at the points and results of the research according to heavy metals and polycyclic compounds, we can understand why your new sites you found what you found. So in the general conclusions, you say that you plan further research, and I recommend you to reference your own previous research by Annika, where you can find solutions to many questions which we have now. That was my comment. And the question is the following. Now with colleagues from EcoSense and activists in Zaporizhia, we work with the plan for the green reconstruction in local communities, in the Zaporizhia community, etc. And the question is, how do you see the practical application of your results? Their scientific value is obvious, but how can we use these results in practical sense? Unfortunately, I didn't hear that in presentation, and I didn't find that in the text of report. So maybe you have a strategy or vision or recommendation for the ways how the analysts in the ministry can use your results to plan the green recovery and the post-war recovery of Ukraine. Thank you.
Okay, maybe regarding the recovery, it's probably for me to answer. As for green recovery or post-war recovery and Kakhovka, I think what we can do is just provide these indicative results, because that's within the capacity of Arnika, provide them to the relevant authorities on the regional level, local level, and national level. And then, of course, when we're talking about making the decision what to do with Kakhovka reservoir, that's not only about the contamination, but it's also about some more complicated decision which needs to consider many other criteria. But we think it's important that we at least indicated that the contamination might be an issue, and that it's something what should be taken into account when we're talking about the future of Kakhovka reservoir. But that's, I think, really on very long discussion and with experts from other fields. As for the green recovery on maybe some more local level and regional level in Zaporizhia and Dnipropetrovsk, because these are the areas where we are mostly active. We are in contact with hromadas, with the municipalities. The first stage was to make some kind of inventory of the environmental problems which they have. And the next step is we are trying to help them within the limits which we as Arnika have. So we provide expert support. We can provide some small support for certain concrete small projects. And we can also transfer know-how and experience from the Czech Republic. I mean, we are not UN and we are not European Union, but we are trying to help at least with the limits of with the limited power which we have, as you know, Maxim.
Пане Максиме, щось додасте?
Maxim, do you have anything to add? Thank you. I have nothing to add. Thank you so much. I understand. I understood the position.
Так, дякую вам за активність.
Thank you for being active. And Vladislav Zezera added to his comment that there are many methods of working with sediment before studying the metal content. And the question was, what method of sediment destruction or extraction did you use? And he said that he's a senior researcher at the Institute of Hydrobiology of National Academy of Sciences.
Я можу відповісти, якими методиками користувалися
I can answer about the methods. We use the state standards of Ukraine, which describe the detection of contamination in soil. We didn't use and didn't have methods for riverbed sediments, so we used the standards for soil. So thank you, Ludmila. And Nicola also answered that the study concerning the question, which he did not answer. The study includes a comparison with reference locations that are intended to provide an idea of the concentrations of analyzed elements in similar locations.
Пан Сорока додає, що тут питання щодо
asks that the question was dealing with preparation of samples. If they used the general approach since 2018, so the approach was general mineralization with the detection of total amount of elements.
Якось прокоментуєте?
So would anyone like to comment?
Пані Людмила, Марцела?
Людмила?
Або Нікола?
I can only say that if for our studies, when we analyze samples, we usually use the same labs, and that's why we could use the previous studies, because they were comparable to each other. So there was similar approach I used.
Що стосується пробопідготовки в нашій лабораторії,
as for the sample preparation in our lab,
загальновідомі
so
висушування,
we use the general approaches like drying, using the sieve, the measurement of weight of each sample.
звично як для ґрунту.
It's a standard approach for working with soil. The question was dealing with preparation of soil to determine heavy metals. It may be either mineralization to find the content of heavy metals or burning and other methods. So the question was dealing with that. So we detected metals by atom absorption. Thank you, Ludmila. Thank you, Tanya, for clearing the issue. Maxime, and we will.
Я хотів би, бо я бачу.
I would like to say that I see what the colleagues are trying to ask. So the question is the same with that which was asked in 2018. The question is, what do we study? What is the subject? And as for the approach which is applied, we don't see too much about that in the report. That's why I referenced the 2018, and at that time, we measured the total contents. We didn't measure the separate forms, but measured the total content. It's not standard in Ukraine, especially for some heavy metals, because we have some heavy metals in our geography. But the fact is that it's the disadvantage of the description of methodology in the report. So maybe you could clarify that or provide additional comments concerning the preparation of samples in terms of mineralization. I guess that the same approaches were used. It's a complete mineralization, and detection of gross content and separate forms were not studied. That's what the people are asking to clarify.
Дякую, пане Максиме і пане
Я
Андрій.
перепрошую.
Thank you, Maxim
екологічна
Andrei.
інспекція
I'm sorry.
визначає якраз
The environmental inspection was looking at the heavy metals, and we were looking at the atomization. Hello, colleagues. Thank you very much for such an interesting event. I would like first and foremost thank our foreign colleagues for their high level of professionalism and the amazing job that you have carried out. I have a question to probably our foreign colleagues. How do you view? So you have carried out the analysis, you demonstrated the level of contamination of different compounds. How do you see recultivation of this reservoir? Say in case we do not bring the water back and we leave it as it is now, what would be your approach? Maybe you have some previous experience of how you can restore, well, without spending a lot of money, but doing that in a natural way. Shall we keep it as is, let the nature do it on its own, for example, so that the ivy trees start growing there, etc.? Or maybe it is worse to plant some crops there so that it would absorb all of the contamination from the soil. So what is your perspective on that? Thank you.
Okay, let me share my personal view, personal opinion, because this is such a complicated issue. And honestly to say, I don't know what's the right approach. I don't know if we should say like, let's leave Kakhovka as it is now, or let's rebuild Kakhovka. Me personally, I think that probably the optimal solution would be somewhere in the middle. You see, maybe make either several smaller reservoirs or make a smaller reservoir. But at this moment, I really don't think that we have even enough information to decide this, because nature conservation could be one criterion for our decision, but I think there are also other criteria. I mean, there are people living around the area, and we need to take into account this. And I also actually, we don't know what is in the sediments. We know some little small indication that it could be a problem. But before we will decide what we will do with Kakhovka, I think we really need to take more samples, because there can be areas which can be much more dangerous than what we spotted now. So I'm sorry that I'm not going to give you nice and like simple answer, but I think it's impossible to respond in a like there is no simple solution. And as for experience in the Czech Republic, I mean, nobody has experience with such disaster as Kakhovka. I mean, it never happened anything like this. So again, we can only take some experience maybe with other similar issues, but I think the scale, the level of what happened, it's different. But yes, we have some experience in the Czech Republic with contaminated small reservoirs, small places with water, and there are some processes which can be used. But as for Kakhovka, I think we need much longer discussion and receive much more information. So, but thank you for the good question.
Дякую. Далі в нас є питання ще Ірини
We have a question from Irina Babanina. Are you planning to also look at the bottom sediments and the rivers of the lower Dnipro basin and Petrovsk region at the further study of contaminated sites for 2025?
As I have mentioned, at this moment we focus on the hotspots in the Dnipropetrovsk region. We are still looking for the suitable sites. We have like a big list of sites, and we are now going to make a short list. If you have some good suggestion where there is like potential environmental risk and threat, please send it to us, and we are ready to consider including it into our study.
Так, я бачила ще питання,
I
але
saw one more question, but it is gone
тож, колеги, якщо
from the
є
chat
ще
box. So, ladies and
коментарі
gentlemen, if you have any
або
additional
можливість щось
questions,
поставити,
you
я
have an
буду
amazing
зачитати
opportunity to
питання,
ask
які
them. In the
були
meantime, I'm
при
gonna
реєстрації.
read the questions that were
Так,
submitted to us
Віталій
during their
Гулівець,
registration.
фахівець
Vitaly
із
Hulivets,
СНЕЦу, Київ,
expert of his
запитував,
from
чи
Kyiv, was
використовували
asking whether
методи дані супутникових знімків
you
для
have used
дослідження
the
зони
satellite
підкладень.
imagery to look at the bottom sediments.
No, we did not. We were only using like the field survey.
У Державної екологічної інспекції
The state
немає
environmental inspection does not have this kind of the IT systems.
Yes, and also we didn't use it as well. At this study, we used only like taking the samples and the laboratory analysis. We used satellite data when we were evaluating the air quality in Ukraine, and you can see the study on our website.
Так, посилання я вже
Thank you.
скинула в
I have
наш
already
чат,
shared
але
the
не
link in our chat box, but please, no worries. We're gonna double share it with you. We're gonna send it to all of the email boxes that you have provided us with while registering. There was also a question. Wait, give me a second. There was a question from a colleague from Bosnia. Anna Borojevic, I hope I managed to pronounce the name in the right way. She was asking about the following. As a result of this research, are you planning to develop the decontamination plan or some collaboration plan of state environmental inspection with your organization, or maybe there will be some recommendations that the state environmental inspection will be submitted to the Ministry of Environment? Well, this is such a difficult question. This is not something that falls within the responsibilities of the state environmental inspection. This is probably something that needs to be resolved at the governmental level.
I totally agree with Ludmila. I mean, first of all, we have only very few results comparing to the size of Kakhovka. We will provide the information from our study with a letter to the national authorities, to the regional authorities. And of course, one of the recommendations will be that we need to collect more results, more samples before we can decide what to do with Kakhovka.
Так, і питання від Ігоря Гончаренко.
And question from Igor Honcharенko. He was asking about the lab that was used for sampling and analyzing the samples. What is the accreditation of these labs? Yes, that's the question. So, if I may, I'm gonna chime in and take this question. Talking about our lab has not been accredited, but it is authorized. We have the metrological system within the state environmental inspection, and the lab of the Southern District is authorized to carry out measurements that allow to measure process and services within the metrology that pertains to the condition of the environment. And we are authorized to do that until May 20, 2025. And we are working in accordance with this authorization. This is it from me.
Марцело.
Thank you, Marcelo.
I think it's for Nicola about the laboratories.
Yeah, we use more laboratories, and for example, the one for heavy metals is it's accredited by the Czech Accreditation Institute. It has ISO certificate, and I would have to check the rest. I don't remember it.
But I think it's we can say that all of them are certified according the EU standards. So that's the reason why we work with them. So.
Так, колеги, якщо є ще
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any more questions, now is the time when you can still ask them.
Вибиває постійно. Якщо немає, то
In case there are no questions left, I suggest we wrap up.
Олександра, я ще хотів трошки
I wanted to chime in,
підсумувати.
if I may, to sum it up.
Чутно мене?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Вітання, мене звати Олексій Ангорець.
Hello, my name is Alexey Angoretz. I'm one of the
програми «Чисте повітря для
experts
України» і
who was working
також був в команді, яка проводила це
in this team.
дослідження.
I
На сам
am from
кінець
Clean Air for
хотів з вами
Ukraine,
поділитися,
and, you know,
ну, скажімо так,
I
ще
wanted
раз
to share
для
with you
загального
yet again
розуміння,
for the
навіщо
general
ми це робили і які
understanding
подальші
why did we
кроки
do
ми
that,
бачимо,
and
пропонуємо.
what are the further steps that we
Перш за все,
envision,
щиро
that we
дякую також
suggest.
за таку
First and
активну
foremost,
увагу.
I'd like
Багато
to thank
людей
for so much
сьогодні з
attention. So
нами.
many people joined us
Багато
today.
науковців
So many
присутні з
scientists
нами.
are here with us today.
Ви маєте розуміти, що по суті
You have to
справи це
understand
було перші
that
кроки
basically these were
для
the first steps.
визначення, навіть,
The first steps that
так би
allow
мовити,
us to determine
направлення подальших зусиль.
in which direction
Безумовно,
we
що
should head
відповідно до
further.
наших досліджень ми не
Obviously,
можемо вам
according to
сказати
our
про
study, we cannot tell you
точне
about the
об'єм забруднення, території
exact level of
забруднення,
pollution,
повний перелік
territory of
речовин, які
pollution,
забруднюють.
the full list
Це все
of
те,
all
що
the
потребує
substances. This
системних
is
досліджень
something that
і
requires a
декількох
systemic
громадських
study,
організацій
and
зі сторони
probably
Чехії, зі сторони
several
України, а
NGOs,
системного державного,
not only
скоріше,
from
можливо,
Czech
навіть
Republic and
міждержавного
Ukraine, it
підходу для
probably
аналізу.
even requires
Ми
state level or
зробили
even
це, щоб
interstate approach.
підштовхнути, так би
We
мовити,
did it
показати
to
перспективи, куди
demonstrate
потрібно
what
рухатися.
can
Я
be done
бачу,
further, in which
що
direction
таким
we should
чином
head.
можуть відкриватися і мають відкриватися
I
перспективи
understand
для дослідження наукових
that
установ,
this also gives an
знов-таки
impetus
спільно
to
різних країн.
different
Для системного,
institutions
ви
from
бачили
different
кількість
countries. You
досліджень,
could
які
see the
проводилися
number
тут по
of
Чеській
research that
Республіці
was
для
carried out in
визначення
Czech Republic alone
забруднених
to
ділянок.
detect and determine
Тобто це
all the
мають бути
contaminated areas.
сотні, можливо,
So
тисячі
this should be
відбор проб
hundreds, maybe even
по
thousands
всій
of samples
території. Це мають
across the
бути
entire
роботи
area.
фахівців різної
We
категорії
need
для того,
to
щоб
involve
визначити
experts of different
глобальну
level
ситуацію, а тим
to
більш, щоб
understand the overall
визначитися з тим,
situation
що нам далі
and to
робити
understand
з
what needs to be
територією
done next
колишнього Каховського
with the
водосховища.
territory of the former
Тобто,
Kakhovka dam.
це, так би мовити, перший крок від
So
нас
this is
і
the first
така
step that we made,
пропозиція для
and
всіх
this is a
включитися в
suggestion
роботу.
for everyone to
Я ще раз щиро
also
дякую
jump
також
in
екологічній інспекції,
and join
яка
us. I'd like to once again thank the
Запорізької
environmental
області,
inspection of
інспекція,
Zaporizhia
яка
Oblast,
долучилася
the
і
Southern
допомогла
District
нам із
inspection,
визначенням
that
місць.
also helped
Тобто,
us with
також,
detecting the
як вже
sites.
казала Марцела,
As
в
Marcel already
умовах війни,
mentioned,
яка триває, важко
the war
провести
is ongoing, and it is
території
hard
прифронтової. Тобто,
to
звісно, що
do your
можуть
research
бути
in the areas that are
додаткові
adjacent to the
питання,
front
і
line.
я пропоную і прошу вам
So
також
I
надавати ці
suggest, and I
питання,
also would like to
рекомендації для
ask you to submit any
подальшої
additional
роботи
questions
щодо
and recommendations for our
конкретних
further
точок
work
визначення, щодо
when
переліку
it
речовин, які
comes
потрібно визначатися,
to
щоб
the
подалі
substances that need to be
спільно
analyzed, so
формувати,
that we
можливо,
can
формувати
together
запити до
submit
держави, тому що
requests to the state.
громадські організації не можуть
Because
виконати
NGOs
безумовну роботу,
cannot
яка є
do
рівня
something
державних структур, державної
that
організації.
state
Таким
authorities are
чином,
supposed to be
ми
doing.
показали і...
So we demonstrated.
Так, мене чутно?
Can you hear me still?
Окей.
Yes, we can, we can.
Тобто це перший крок, відповідно до якого будемо рухатися
So
далі.
this is the first step.
Дякую
And
за
many more
увагу,
steps
тому що
need
через
to be yet
технічних
taken. Thank
причин
you for your attention.
я
Because for
не все чую, що ви
technical
кажете, бо
reasons I could not hear
мені
everything
мікрофон
that
зараз
you were
виключений.
saying.
Дякую.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexei. And in the chat box, Alexei Ilinsky also said that in his opinion, it is worth using a research that was carried out previously. He sent us a link to that study. And you can click the link, take a closer look at that. So if there are no more questions or comments, I suggest we wrap up our presentation. As Alexei said, yes, it is true. We're open for any suggestions, questions, discussions. You can contact us by email, send us direct messages. We're gonna forward it to our experts. And we also had some questions that did not pertain to this event. We're gonna respond to them, so please don't think that we ignored them. We will not leave anything unanswered. Thank you so much for your time, for your activity, and we will email you and we'll send you the links to all of the materials. Thank you, and goodbye. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for such a good research. Bye bye. Goodbye. Bye.